Okay, so here we are. This is podcast number 3, and this is my very first podcast with a guest. And I am extremely privileged and excited to have on my show. I feel like I've got God sitting next to me over here. So, and the sign of God is when they're really humble and they don't, brag too much about stuff. But after you hang out with them for a little bit, you realize, man, they know a lot of stuff. They know like probably a lot more stuff than I know. I should probably get to know this person over here. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Dr. John Collins, who was my mentor and teacher. He taught half a dozen classes at the National College of Naturopathic Medicine, since to be changed the name a few times. And he taught everything from gastroenterology to dermatology to pathology, cardiac and pulmonary, and of course, homeopathy. So Dr. Collins here was known for his amazing acuity, but again, humble with homeopathy. And he spent 45 years practicing, kind of very similar to how I practice, in a house that was converted. and it's true. And his background is, I mean, it's really kind of weird that we have been traveling the same path. He's a little ahead of me because he's old fart, and we're going to put him out to pasture here pretty shortly. He grew up in Connecticut, not too far from Valley Stream, which is in New York, where I grew up. And his mom was into health foods, and his mom was into, at the time in the early '60s, Carlton Fredericks and Adele Davis. They were the nutrition gods, and Adele Davis was really into raw milk and fresh meat, and so that's what my mom followed: fresh meat. And pretty much every meal we had some kind of meat. And she never cooked a TV dinner in her life, and so that was amazing. And we had, usually it was a shot glass full of vitamins in the morning when we left for school. And it was, the one we hated the most was bone meal, because that was like always got stuck, but I could swallow about 12 vitamin pills without any water. I can't do that now, but I would just stick them in my mouth, run out the door, and swallow them in one big gulp. And I was like, okay. It's funny, she never really said anything to me about that, about swallowing them without water. And like, why don't you do them one at a time? You would think your mom would have been watching you a little more closely. She was just happy to see that I took those vitamins. So, okay. So what we want to talk about today is everything under the sun. So there's a lot of things under the sun. So a very interesting phenomenon. When John Collins was a little boy, he was interested in athletics, and so was I. I wanted to play baseball for the Pittsburgh Pirates. That's what I told my guidance counselor.
I never would have played for the Pirates. I would have been the Yankees.
Well, I wanted to go Yankees, but I had a relative, Art Rooney, who owned the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Okay.
So I thought I had an in over there. Whereas, the Yankees.
Look how you turned out.
Yeah, look how I turned out. So John got interested in nutrition at an early age before I did. I didn't really give too much about that. And then, when he was about 20 years old, he was challenged. Wait, you were challenged by your daughter, I thought.
No, that was when I was 50.
Oh, that was 50. Oh, sorry.
I was 20.
I skipped
went
ahead.
fishing.
20, he went vegetarian. He went vegetarian because of ethical reasons. And then, 30 years later, his daughter was challenging him about the ethics of eating dairy. And then he went full vegan. So I had to almost the exact same at age 19. I beat you by 1 year. I was in, nutrition school. I decided that I wanted to originally be Carl Sagan after I got cut from the college baseball team, Nassau Community College. I thought, if I can't make the college team, I'm not going to make the pros. So I decided I wanted to, I wanted to study something that was very similar to astrophysics and something that I did on a daily basis. And so, mostly astronomy, you're inside the lab and you're looking at numbers, and I'm like, that's not so much fun. So I decided I wanted to study the infinitesimally small molecular biochemistry. And I thought, that seems like a good thing. Let's do molecular biochemistry with food, because my mom's really into good food. We had bread in the freezer. We had whole wheat Pepperidge Farm bread, and it was in the freezer so it wouldn't oxidize. That was her shtick. And all the nuts and seeds were in the freezer. I mean, she was way, way ahead of her time. And so I thought, okay. So I applied to Cornell, and I wasn't much of a student at the beginning. So Cornell did not look favorable on my transcript, and they decided I wasn't the right material. So I ended up in Buffalo, New York, and I went to school, and my program was food and nutrition, and that program was geared towards getting a PhD. And so, but I wanted to study, nutrition, clinical nutrition. How do we use nutrition as a form of medicine? So I was like, well, first thing, let's get my nutrition degree. So I went to school with dietitians and food service management people. And at age 19, I realized, in studying, about animal protein and fat and saturated fats, like really you should be vegetarian. So I became vegetarian at age 19. For Thanksgiving, I would eat some turkey. And then, I also ate some fish here and there because fish seemed like it was a good thing. And maybe we need those omega-3 fatty acids. And then it took me another 40 years to become vegan. So you beat me on that one. And it was mostly because of the environment, really. But when you look at everything together, really, it's it's like a no-brainer. I mean, it's like, well, why isn't everyone doing this? From a nutritional standpoint, from an environmental standpoint, I heard Richard Oppenlander give a lecture on YouTube, and when he talked about what are those receptors that fish experience?
Oh, nociceptors.
Nociceptors. Pain receptors.
Mhm.
Because when I was a little kid, I always thought because I went fishing, maybe 3 or 4 times. I was into baseball and football. And I always thought man, that must hurt, like getting a hook in your mouth and then they pull the hook out and they throw you back in the water. It's like, that doesn't seem very nice.
That was the exact line of thinking that got me to go vegetarian at age 20. I was fishing.
Is that
and
right?
I started thinking I started thinking about what was going on at the other end of the line.
Yeah.
I was thinking, here I am figuring out which bait to use and which part of the stream the fish would be in, the shady spot versus the
you were
deeper spot.
Yeah.
My grandfather was a big fisherman.
Oh, okay.
And so then I started thinking, well, what about the fish experience?
Yeah.
Because you have to think about the fish to catch fish.
Yeah.
Think about what they want and where they are. And so I started thinking, what about the fish when he gets the hook?
Yeah.
And so I was thinking about that and, the mouth and even if you throw them back, you have to reach down in there and rip the hook out.
Yeah.
You throw them back, they probably aren't going to survive. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I started thinking about that and I thought, well, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that to fish.
Yeah.
I had met a vegetarian, my first vegetarian I had met on an airplane. Who didn't eat the airplane food. He just ate a grapefruit.
Yeah. Grapefruit diet.
And he was telling me about how good he felt being a vegetarian and stuff. And I had read Henry David Thoreau, who was a vegetarian. And I read I was 20 years old. So I had
You were impressionable.
I was a student. So I had read the autobiography of Benjamin Franklin, and he was a vegetarian in the beginning.
Right.
Later on, he ate everything and got gout and various diseases.
Yeah.
But when he was young and idealistic, he became a vegetarian. And so I had heard of this. So I started thinking about it and I thought, oh, I don't want to do that to fish.
Yeah.
But I made myself go through the ritual of catching it and killing it and gutting it and eating it, the whole time thinking, this is my last fish. This is my final fish meal. But as I was doing that, then the mind rolls on.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, so I'm not going to catch any more fish, so I'm going to have to buy fish.
Yeah.
But that means somebody else is going to be doing to the fish what I'm not willing to do.
Yeah.
And I was influenced a lot by books, I guess. I had read The Jungle by Upton Sinclair in high school.
Ooh,
and that left a deep impression on me.
Should.
And so I was thinking, well, what about meat?
Yeah.
And I thought about what I knew about the meat packing industry and how brutal it was for animals.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to kill animals. But what about those people who work in the meat packing plant that through force of circumstance have to go in there and live that life and do that stuff that I would not do? Well, I'm not going to use my dollars to create that to contribute to that economic pressure. I'm not going to vote with my dollars to encourage employers to create these jobs and to create these procedures that kill and slaughter animals. So I guess I'm stuck here. I'm going to have to be like Henry David Thoreau or that guy I met on the airplane. I guess it's possible. I'd heard about it. So I thought, I don't want to do it myself. It's probably just as bad or maybe worse. Maybe it's cowardly to not do it myself, or it's hypocritical to not do it myself and yet pay somebody else to do it for me.
Yeah.
And so I think I'm stuck now due to my logic and reasoning. I've backed myself into this horrible corner of
one way
deprivation that I'm going to have to be a vegetarian.
Yeah.
But I thought at least the cows don't die to give milk.
Right.
And the chickens don't die to give eggs. But then I was in yoga and I had a guru who said, don't eat eggs. They're bad for your yoga practice.
Right.
So I gave up on eggs.
So you gave up eggs before
but the yogis always ate, used dairy products.
So you gave up.
I gave up meat, fish, and eggs all at once.
I thought you gave up eggs before you gave up like dairy products.
No, I just gave up all that stuff.
All at once.
And then
that was when you were.
But then I was on a yoga diet, which was a lacto-vegetarian diet. So we ate lots of yogurt and cheese and butter and all that kind of stuff. But even my health improved from that. I noticed that, a big change in me. I was very prone to mental health problems as a youth, depression and mood swings. And I noticed after I went vegetarian, I was staring out the window one summer, thinking, what is this? What's going on? I feel balanced. I feel at peace. What the hell's going on here?
How come I'm not anxious, and how come I don't want to like smack someone?
I'm kind of steady in my mood. What is it?
Yeah.
I didn't know until later on, a year or two later, I realized, and I'd heard some other people talking about that I thought, maybe it was from that diet change.
Yeah, maybe there's something to this thing.
Right.
You eat the animals.
And I'd had a lot of digestive trouble, which improved a lot when I went on the vegetarian diet. As long as I ate yogurt a lot.
Yeah.
And so yogurt, has beneficial microbes and stuff, and so it helped my digest. So I realized this is good for me.
Yeah.
So it's an ethical thing, but also it's good for me. And so I settled into that and raised my kids that way.
Yeah, which is kind of amazing.
But my daughter rebelled. She turned against us at age 15 and said, "You lacto-vegetarians are hypocrites. You think you're not harming animals by just taking the milk from a mother cow who willingly gives her milk to her young. But you're stealing it from her young, and you're causing her to be trapped in a factory farming situation where she's just kept constantly pregnant, lactating, milk machine. And when she, starts to get a little older and the production goes down, she gets slaughtered.
Yeah.
So she's a slave, and her young are turned into the same. Yeah. Or if they're males, they go to veal.
Yeah.
Which is a torturous short life for young male.
It's better though,
bovines.
3 months, and they don't have to endure the torture for 12 months. How
right. Well, that's what I heard from one person say about eating meat. I said, what's the problem? If you kill the animal, he's not going to suffer anymore.
It's like humans. If you kill a human, they're not going to suffer.
Yeah,
So
you've
why don't we
solved
just kill
you've
each
solved
other?
the human dilemma
Yeah,
of life being a struggle. You don't struggle anymore. Yeah, in fact, the yoga guru, one of the things he said was, where there is no struggle, there is no life.
Yeah.
I remember when I first heard that, I thought, no,
Yeah.
I want to find a life that's peace and calm and no struggle. That's why I'm practicing yoga and meditation. And the guru says, where there is no struggle, there is no life. So you must embrace struggle. So it's not, it doesn't seem like it's a good reason, a good rationale to kill animals, because they're not going to suffer anymore after you kill them. That's sort of a little bit shallow thinking, I guess. But I lost my track there.
That's fine.
Yeah.
This podcast.
Oh, the daughter. So she challenged us. She put a leaflet on the refrigerator.
Yeah.
It said where milk comes from, and it was one of those 3-fold leaflets, and it had the whole story about the dairy females and the males. The
young away,
right, and the veal, and ripping the young away because the mothers don't get to nurse.
Crying.
Yes, they don't get to nurse their babies anyway.
Yeah.
So they're and so I realized that milk does not necessarily hurt the cow to milk her.
Yeah.
But the whole situation is brutal, and so I said, all right, I'm 50 years old. I'll try it.
Really?
I said, you're my darling daughter. Yeah. I will try it. Yeah. But if it doesn't agree with me, I'm telling you, I'm going back to going back to it. So I had a ball of mozzarella cheese. Yeah. And I put it in the refrigerator. I said, whenever I need some milk protein, I'm going to take a slice off of that. I need that. And I ate that whole ball of cheese. I went and bought another one. And I found that other one in the back of my refrigerator. Yeah. Some months later, it was all dried up and cracked and stuff. I had just forgotten about it.
I have it's funny. I have a piece of. I have a cheddar cheese, a block in my freezer from when I turned vegan at age 60, about 8 years ago. Mm-hmm. Still there. Yeah. I'm waiting to give it to someone. I'm sure it's still good. I mean, it's been frozen as a block, and if I
put it on eBay. You might be able to sell it for extra as an aged, double super aged cheese.
It's really aged over there.
But I thought if I don't thrive on this vegan diet, then all right, I tried it. I'll go back.
Yeah.
But all the rest of my digestive problems cured from that.
Cleared up.
I was still sensitive to milk. I didn't know it.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. And sinus trouble. I used to get sinus infections.
Yeah.
If I would eat Tillamook cheese, if I ate too many, I could feel it in my maxillary sinus on one side. Yeah. And if I had a cold, it would really get bad.
Yeah.
And after I went off milk, I never had any more sinus trouble ever in the last 23 years.
Yeah.
So obviously I had some milk sensitivity.
Interesting, yeah.
Because my mother was very allergic to various foods, and my sister and my brother had allergies, but I never thought I had any food allergies, but I must have had a little bit.
Yeah. Did you have a milkman in your neighborhood?
Yeah, with bottles.
Yeah, the bottles.
Yeah.
Oh, they were so good.
Yeah.
They were ice
cold.
Had
a little paper lid you'd pull off.
You peel off.
Cream at the top.
And the top, it was all nice and round and smooth, so you could put your lips right onto the bottle. And I would just chug like literally a whole quart of whole milk.
This is what they call food porn, I think, what we're indulging in right now.
Yeah. And, we would get pizza, New York pizza, and my mom would have like a half a slice. We would save it because she worked at Carr's bookstore on Tuesday night. My dad would eat like a slice and a half, and I would eat 6. I'm talking New York pizza, which was, 6 slices.
This is X-rated food porn now.
We're talking. That was enough food for like 3 days for sure. And then I would have a whole couple of glasses of whole milk, but I had to have salad. My mom wouldn't let me eat pizza without salad, so she always left salad in the refrigerator and said, "You can't eat the pizza without salad." So I was very dutiful that way. But I never thought about like how much milk I drank. I never seemed to have much in the way of health problems and stuff.
Oh, good.
So I was okay with that. Maybe my type B negative blood was protective, but I don't know.
Well, there's this beloved nutrition-oriented medical doctor, Joel Fuhrman.
Yeah.
And he pointed out years ago that for human health, if you can reduce your animal intake down to only 5% of your calories, maybe for some people, 10% of your calories could be from animal products.
Yeah.
And the rest of your diet is whole foods, unrefined, no junk food, good balanced diet. chocolate could be good
Okay, good.
in
All right.
modest amounts, right?
All right.
That there would be no detriment to your health from having a small amount of your diet from animal foods. So I pondered that a little bit, and I thought, okay, well then the only reason to be totally vegan
Yeah.
is for the animals.
Yeah.
You go to ask the animals,
Yeah.
do you which ones of you would like to sacrifice your life so that
Right.
I can have 5 or 10% of my calories
Yeah.
from your leg or your thighs
Your
or your
wing.
breast or your wing? You know,
Yeah.
which ones of you can I kill
Yeah.
so that I can have 5 to 10%
Yeah.
of my
Yeah.
diet, and I'll be healthy? And none of them would come forward.
Interesting.
Now you could imagine a suicidal cow
Yeah.
or a
Depressed.
depressed chicken that might want to
Yeah.
die, but still, that's
Yeah,
no, that's a ridiculous
that's
idea.
different, yeah.
So the reason to be completely, in my mind, the reason
Yeah.
to be completely vegan is altruistic.
Yeah.
It's not for the benefit of us; it's for the benefit of the animals who want to live their life.
Yeah, like regular
Yeah.
people.
That was another thing the guru taught me.
Yeah.
All creatures cherish their existence
Yeah.
just the way you cherish your own.
Yeah.
Not in the same way,
Yeah.
because we think about it and stuff, and we have philosophy, and
Yeah.
we think about lifespan. They don't have all those
Right,
concepts,
right.
but they cling to life. You try to slaughter an animal, they cling
Yeah,
to
they
life.
do,
You're going to
they-
get injured in the process if you don't know
Yeah.
what you're doing,
Yeah.
because they're going to fight tooth and nail, right?
So yeah.
Animals cherish their existence, and so can we honor that?
Yeah.
Could we honor that, or are we destined? Are we forced? Are we required
Yeah.
to take the lives of animals for our own survival and to think, well, we have a higher purpose. We have big things we need to do in the world. We're going to have to kill some lower life forms so that we can survive. Well, it's true, but it turns out the lower life forms that we need to kill
Yeah.
would be plants
Yeah.
and bacteria
Yeah.
and fungi.
Yeah.
But we don't actually have to kill the animals, and we know that they cherish their life in a way that plants and bacteria don't,
Yeah.
as far as our best understanding at this point.
Right.
Although plants do have their life
They
force.
do, right?
So we
Like,
shouldn't waste them.
If you threaten a plant, it like grows away from you, blah,
Yeah,
blah, blah.
that's another thing that the guru taught me. There is such a thing as cruelty to plants.
Yeah.
If you deprive plants of their ability to fulfill their existence,
Yeah.
if you do that carelessly, wastefully, that's cruelty to plants.
Yeah. That's not
But
nice.
we do need to eat them.
Well, I mean, so I want to get to this ethical dilemma
Yeah. All
we're
right.
going to talk about with pets and all that and their food and whatnot. So I was at a Ram Dass retreat before he passed away. It was in Maui. I flew over there. It was that was the year I won Physician of the Year. Wait, what was it? No, I made the Hall of Fame, our school Hall of Fame over there.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So I missed my presentation here in Portland.
I remember I saw you on video.
Oh, you saw me.
Yeah.
And I was with Ram Dass
Yeah.
and Krishna Das, and they were right next to me. We waved to the camera and stuff. I thought that was pretty
Yeah.
cool. But there was 350 people at this conference, and the theme of the conference was love everyone. And so, after a couple days, they got the food, that they laid out in this kind of fancy hotel place. And, I noticed that we were pretty much eating meat at every meal.
Oh,
It was,
really?
bacon. It was the normal fare. And so
Mhm.
I raised my hand, they were given a question and answer period. I'm like, so the name of this conference, the theme is love everyone. So is everyone's that include the animals? Oh yeah, sure, the animals. It's like, well, why are we eating them 3 times a day during this conference? Shouldn't we be a little bit more respectful for the animals, and not eat
It's a
them?
reasonable request to at least try.
Yeah, because you are
Mhm.
Buddhists and you're supposed to.
Mhm.
What's the philosophy? It's like you're not supposed to do undue harm, and so that raises the question: do we really need to eat animals? And as you mentioned, like how much do we need to eat meat-wise? So we look at the blue zones where people live the longest of any place in the world, and except for the Seventh-day Adventists, one small portion of them in California, Loma Linda, none of them are vegans. But when you see how much actual animal products they eat, maybe once a week, once every 10 days, so they kind of really are mostly vegan. And do they really need that little bit of animal product to help them survive and live a long time? Um, so, in studying this for 50 years, I've come to the conclusion absolutely not. And the healthiest way by far is to eat a very diversified, plant-rich diet that avoids any animal products. And Walter Willett, Dr. Willett, who's Harvard professor, tenured, he's like the most respected nutritional scientist in the world, really. And he made the statement the optimal amount of red meat to eat in any diet is 0. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, red meat especially causes trouble, huh?
But I think it's all the
Yeah.
meats,
Well, what about that number I quoted from Joel Fuhrman, which I picked up many years ago?
Yeah.
You've looked at the science more closely than
Yeah.
I have. He looked at all the science
Yeah.
to come up with that idea. Is that valid? That as far as we know, human health is not harmed by a small amount of animal products, but certainly the way the standard American diet has so much animal products, it's killing us.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the blue zones demonstrate that. We eat them, once a week, once every 10
Yeah.
days, and these are the healthiest, longest-lived people in
Yes,
the
okay.
world. So the real question is, do we really need that
Do we
amount?
really need that?
Yeah. And so if you've seen the movie, Cowspiracy,
Mhm.
there's a little interview with Michael Pollan, and he's getting interviewed by Kip Anderson, and Kip asks him, well, like if everyone wanted to eat like some meat, like from a sustainability, we're going to get 9 billion people here in another 20, 30 years. Like how much could we each eat? And he's like, well, it's hard to say, but, really best guess would be maybe 2 ounces every 7 to 10 days. Like, so what the hell's the point? Does that 2 ounces, is that really going to make you, are we going to sacrifice the environment of our planet so that we could have 2 ounces of like steak? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So I think, that, we know that fasting, which is pretty well vegan as far as I last, except for the bacteria.
Yeah, you're breathing.
You're breathing in some bugs over
uh-huh.
there. So, but if you wear a mask, maybe,
You walk in the grass.
Yeah, you walk in the grass. So,
But anyway, yes, fasting.
fasting, is one of the healthiest things you can do for your body. So I'll be doing an upcoming podcast on fasting. And, and that doesn't get any more vegan than that. So when you look at these health clinics around the world, Buchinger in Germany, I went to last year. I spent a few weeks there, down at True North and the Hippocrates Institute, and all these detox cancer fasting clinics, pretty well vegan, So it's like they transition from the fast and they go on to a fully plant-based diet.
Mhm.
And Buchinger has some remnant, meat stuff, some cheese that they use. It's like a farmer cheese,
Mhm.
and they whip it up with some flax oil,
Oh yeah.
and then they put it together. It has a name. I can't remember the name of this particular, special thing that
Yeah,
you can eat. And then of course Max Gerson, originally had, raw calf livers that they would grind
every day.
blend up in the blender, and then you drink that down. But they did get rid of that
Oh, they
later
did?
on.
Oh, okay.
Well, I like to think that things that we know that are really good, we could make better, right? Like we could tweak things and make things better. And now, because we have all of this food available to us from around the world, like we could get maki berries, which have the highest ORAC value in the world of any food, comes from Chile. Or we can get konjac, which is the most viscous soluble fiber ever discovered in nature, comes from China originally. So we have access to all these great pomegranates, which protect us against, a number of different cancers, especially prostate cancer, which I have to worry about because it runs in my family big time.
Mhm.
So I have this is the time. Perfect. Look at that. I know I'm not supposed to do this, but I'm doing it anyway. So this is one of my favorite books, Foods to Fight Cancer. It's not a vegan book at all, but we're going to put this on a different picture eventually. It's written by two French scientists, and I don't even know how I discovered it. And it's what I love about it.
Is this a paid advertisement?
No, not at all. But they just have these great photos of
Yeah.
food, and they describe in details about, like broccoli has in it, glucosinolate. And if you chew the broccoli really well, it frees up the enzyme myrosinase, which converts the glucosinolate into sulforaphane. And sulforaphane is one of the most cancer protecting substances that we get from our diet. I'm like, wow, that's really quite trippy. And if you blanch the broccoli, if you freeze it like they do commercially, you kill the myrosinase. So you won't be able to make your sulforaphane out of that. So you need to eat some raw arugula leaves. Or you can have some fresh broccoli to go with that frozen one.
Oh, so that will activate. It's got extra for the frozen stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So, but they did an experiment where they blanched the broccoli before they froze it to like 170 degrees instead of 190. And they found that over 90% of the myrosinase enzyme was basically preserved. So commercially, you could tweak that and still get the same effect.
And save energy.
Save energy, but also preserve the myrosinase. So when we were, in school and we were reading about nutritionists and they kept talking about enzymes, and I was like, what do you mean enzymes? You eat those enzymes, they go in your stomach and they get, basically denatured. So the enzymes don't matter in the food. That doesn't help us. But now we know from various researchers that, well, it's kind of true. It's just like, Dr. Kellogg originally, when Dr. Kellogg came up with his wacky program of separating the sexes, and, he would talk about dead animals rotting in your gut and you shouldn't eat them, it's poisonous and stuff. And, you should do colonics on a routine basis to get rid of toxins and endotoxins. And, he seemed to be a little wacky. And they did that movie, The Road to Wellville.
Oh, right.
And they made him look like a buffoon.
Yeah.
And now he was eccentric, no doubt about it. But he also lived to 92 years old. He was born in 1852. If you were born in 1852 as a male, you lived 47 years on an average. So I want to live to 92 if I can. I'm shooting for 113, but that's another story. So we'll see how it goes.
113, that's the record?
No, the record's 122 and a half.
Oh, okay.
Janae, I want to leave, her at the top.
Okay.
She's female.
That's considerate of you.
That's the one.
Gentlemanly of you.
Yeah, very gentle. But I have a picture out in the waiting room of Panchita, and she was 110, and she was in Costa Rica. And, there's a picture with 7 generations. Wow. 7 generations. That's all lined. Cool. That's crazy, She started young, She started young. So now back to the animals. So, I came about ethics later on, and, for me, like, environment's really important. From a nutritional standpoint, it's like absolute no-brainer. And if people want to see, there's a podcast, Rich Roll, and he interviews Walter Longo, another one. Sorry, we're going to do it again. The longevity diet. I'm a big fan. He's a big fasting guy. And in this, discussion that he had with Rich Roll kept on pushing him, like, what is the ideal diet? What is the ideal? Because in the book,
ideal diet.
The ideal diet for humans, for health and longevity. And, he was like, pretty much, vegan, plant-based, whole foods diet with maybe a little bit of fish, small fish. But when he got pushed a little bit further, he basically admitted that, a fully plant-based vegan diet, whole foods plant-based diet is going to give you the best bang for your buck. And so it's like, okay, I want him on my team. He's a smart guy over there. But, everything that I have read, leads to the same path. So then, now we get down to the ethics. So the ethics is unarguably. And so you, being the kind of guy you are, you and your
I am
wife,
the kind of guy I am.
yeah,
I
you
won't
are.
deny it.
You know, from an early age, like you didn't like this torturing of the animals, so you decided I'm gonna save the animals, and so you started up this out to pasture sanctuary out in Estacada. When did you start this?
My wife started it.
Wife started it.
Yeah,
I see.
I agreed to help her.
Okay, yeah.
I was very busy with
Yeah,
my
yeah,
practice and teaching,
yeah,
and
yeah,
our kids had grown up and were moving out.
yeah,
And prior to that, we had gotten a place in the country
yeah.
because she really loved horses.
Right.
So we had a couple of horses,
Yeah.
and for that, you have to have barns and
Right.
stables and stuff.
Yeah.
And so our kids are moving out. So you got that empty nest idea. Well, you got empty barn. And so she, horses, the grocery store for a horse is called a feed store, So you go to the feed store every
Yeah.
week or so and you buy bags of
Yeah.
grain or you buy bales of hay and
Yeah.
straw and this kind of stuff. And so she just saw a sign on the feed store about help wanted for animals.
Yeah.
And this was a lady who was rescuing horses
Yeah.
from situations of neglect, people who'd lost their property,
Yeah.
couldn't feed the horse anymore, or outright more criminal neglect where horses were starving and
Yeah.
this and that, or abused. And so this woman she was a school bus driver,
All right.
and she lived in a little apartment. She was a single mom living in this little apartment with her daughter, who was
Yeah.
a high schooler, and she had a pickup truck and a little horse trailer. That's all she had as far as farming goes.
Yeah.
She had no land.
Right.
And she would go around, it's called Oregon Animal Rescue.
Okay.
And she would go around and load up these 1,000, 1,200 pound animals into her trailer, horses, and find places that would take care of them. They call it fostering them.
Yeah.
Could you take this horse in and let it in your pasture and let it shelter in your barn?
Yeah.
And if you can adopt it, or at least could you shelter it until I find somebody to adopt it?
Yeah.
And she was doing this and had served the needs of a number of horses that way. So my wife is thinking, well, gosh, we got a lot more than she does. We have a horse trailer and we've got barns and we have a pasture. And so
Oh boy.
let's help her out.
Yeah.
And so she started taking in some animals, and that's how it started.
Yeah.
So that lady got us, as we found out, once you get a reputation for this,
Oh boy.
you get contacted a lot.
Yeah.
I decided the other day to keep a log, because my wife's always talking about, my wife does all the correspondence
Yeah.
for our sanctuary. She does all the social media and correspondence.
Gotcha.
I'm more this the grunt worker who goes outside and does the chores and takes care of the equipment and the
Yeah.
fences and the roofing
Right.
and all that stuff. I'm sort of the hand,
Yeah.
the custodian.
Right.
But she does a lot of all the social media and contacts. And for years, I've been hearing her many times a week saying, "Oh, somebody's got this problem. Somebody's got that problem."
Yeah.
And we're always full. We
Right.
can't take on more animals without creating harm to the ones we have from
Right.
overcrowding. So she's got like this adoption agency going.
Yeah.
And so I decided a couple of weeks ago, I'm going to make a list, because she's always talking about these things. And I'm always having to ask her, well, which pig was that you're talking about? What rooster? And she gets irritated that I don't remember which one. So, okay, I'm going to make a list.
Yeah.
And it turns out every single day, on average,
Yeah.
once a day for the last 15 days, she has gotten a request from somebody who's desperate about, it's been a steer, a bull, a cow, another cow, a goat, a rooster, a chicken, 2 pigs. It goes on and on. Llamas. Every single day, on
Yeah.
average, she gets at least one request.
Yeah.
And so this lady back then was getting this. And so she would then constantly, my wife, she got a soft spot here. She got someplace she can send these
Yeah,
animals.
oh boy.
So she started filling up our barn.
Oh boy.
So we took in potbelly pigs from the Northwest Miniature Pig
Oh
Association.
boy.
And we took in a couple of llamas that had been left out in a field on a chain. These llamas were chained
Oh God.
for like over a year. You could
Yeah.
see the
Yeah.
indentation in their necks.
Yeah.
And so somebody had gotten those, and rescue is the term that's used. It's kind of a sounds like a heroic
Yeah.
term, but from the animal's point of view, I guess is a big relief for them
Getting
to get a new
rescued.
place. Yeah. Where somebody actually takes care of them. So that's how it started.
Okay.
And at some point, we were doing this, and it was costing us money.
Yeah.
And so, I've I made a living, but I never got rich. And so I was, oh no, we can't keep doing this. We got kids going to college and stuff. And so, at that time, it was 2004. Somebody told us that you can do fundraising on social media. We'd never heard of that.
Yeah.
We were having bake sales, we were having bake sales.
Right.
And so we started to then we got a web designer and started to do stuff and have some events on our property. And so over time, we gradually got our Lewis and Claw animal law program, volunteered to do our nonprofit papers for us. So we got our 501c3 status as a nonprofit organization. So then we could ask for donations. And through social media, we found that there's a whole community of people, many vegan, or just animal lovers who don't really think about their own diet so much, who would love to come and help do your chores.
Yeah.
Would love to come and pick up manure and cut blackberries and repair fences and stuff. So we realized that we could actually do more if we reach out that way. We can
you have more
pay,
help.
We have physical help, and we have financial resources.
Yeah.
And so we've maintained that, continued as a non-profit organization, all volunteer. We don't have any paid staff.
Yeah.
So my wife and I volunteer. It's built up to be full-time now, but we enjoy doing it. It keeps us together, and we agree more than we argue, and we enjoy what we're doing. And the animals are so appreciative. That's what they say about dogs. The longer you keep them waiting, the later you are, the happier they are to see you when you finally arrive, right? And after raising 3 kids, to feed animals is so pleasing. They always love the food, whatever you give them. They're so appreciative. And so it's not hard to get some, emotional, encouragement, reinforcement. Your behavior is reinforced because the animals appreciate. And then, in the abstract, you can think of the thoughts that we talked about earlier, what we're saving them from and what they're not suffering.
Right.
But, you give them a good life, they enjoy it.
Yeah.
And you can see that they're enjoying their good life.
Right.
They enjoy the food you bring them.
Right.
You give them a belly rub or scratch them behind the ear. They love it. Some of them hate people because they've been abused.
Yeah.
But so it's turned out to be a self-reinforcing behavior for us.
Yeah.
Because we can see the need, we can see the result.
Right.
And it works for us as individuals and as a family. And so it's just gone on. And we decided at a certain point, to not go big.
Yeah.
There are sanctuaries that are really big, and they have, like the Farm Sanctuary up in New York State, in Woodstock, I think it is, or there's Animal Friends, I think, in California. And you do major fundraising, you get grants, you buy big property, you build big barns, you hire staff,
4 Seasons,
and you, the founder, you write a book, and you go on a book tour, and you do fundraising and public relations full time.
Yeah.
And my wife and I decided, no, that's not for us.
Yeah.
We'd rather just put on our boots and go outside and do some simple work. And so we've always kept it small.
Yeah.
And the problem is we're full.
Yeah. Right.
We could do more good if we weren't so selfish to not want to be full-time administrators.
Yeah.
But we indulge that self-interest, that we like to do outdoor work. We like to have hands-on with the animals. And so we keep doing that. But we figure, it's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
To decline the opportunity to become a big operation.
Yeah.
So we keep it as a small operation.
Yeah. On that note, Fiona Oakes, which you're aware of, just came out with a book. I started reading it.
Huh.
So for those of you that don't know Fiona Oakes, they did a movie documentary. Amazing history. When she was 3 years old, she became vegetarian. And then at age 6 years old, she became fully vegan with some encouragement from her grandmother. So if her grandmother wasn't there, I don't know if her mom would have indulged her in such
Right.
activity.
Yeah.
She developed this really severe knee problem where she underwent a number of surgeries, and they told her that she probably, I mean, she's never going to run again, or, but she might not really walk very much
This happened
anymore.
as a child?
As a child, she
Mm-hmm.
was, I think, 13 or
Okay.
14,
Mm-hmm.
and she, all these operations and stuff. Anyway, so she was like, yeah, I don't think that's true. So she ends up becoming this ultra marathoner. And she,
What is an ultra marathon?
an ultra marathon is when you run more than a marathon. So
Okay.
marathon's 26.2 miles. So it could be a 50 miler, could be a 100 miler, which is
Uh-huh.
beyond my, like, you running the whole
Yeah,
time, or
yeah.
250 miles. So she entered a race in the documentary that they did on her. She entered this race. She was like deathly ill. She had like 103 fever, and yet she ended up doing this race anyway.
Here's what you say: do not try this at home.
Yeah, yeah. And she said, well, I got to do it. And she, it was 250 miles in the Sahara Desert. And it's like, so she has won an ultra marathon race on every continent on Earth, including the Antarctic. And I think even in the Arctic, she did one. And so, and fully vegan, plant based. And so, people, talk about, vegans, and they're all like shrivelly and they can't even, it's like, not really. So, those people haven't seen the Game Changers. Well done. Of course, everyone's trying to pick it apart, but when you look at these athletes who are fully vegan and they're, lifting 400 pounds, and
Yeah,
the one
yeah, I
guy,
saw that.
Patrick Bohemian, he's got,
Yeah.
his neck is bigger than my waist,
Right.
and he lifts up 4 giant adults. I think it was like 1,250 pounds, and carries them like 30 feet on this. And there's one cute part in the movie where they ask him, like, well, you want to be strong like an ox? Well, then you should eat like an ox. An ox is a vegan, that's what they eat.
Yeah.
And people just have such a hard time, like, actually, like, perceiving that you could grow muscles with eating plants. So I got another, oh, so I have a thing here. Okay, another little thing cut away here. So this is a question I ask my patients. This is a plate of broccoli, and it's a
Wow.
big plate.
Yes.
It's a lot. I probably wouldn't eat that much
Yeah,
broccoli.
that's a few pounds.
Yeah. Well, it's actually 906 grams. So the question is, how much protein is in this plate of broccoli? And
1 kilogram of broccoli.
906. Yeah, yeah. So most people, like, 2 grams, maybe 5 grams. 27 grams is the answer. That's a lot of protein.
Yeah, it's
like,
about half your daily requirement if you're a young
yeah,
adult.
it's like, I mean, it doesn't take much to get your requirement. So what we're understanding from a nutritional standpoint, the number one connection, and this has been true since 1991. I read this in Nutritional Biochemistry and Metabolism with Clinical Implications by Dr. Linder. She's a famous biochemist down in California. And she had this table. And when I was teaching nutrition at the naturopathic school, this goes back 1988, I had her table up there, and it had associations and with cardiovascular disease. And by far the number one correlation was how much animal protein that you ate. And you could tease out why. Well, maybe it has to do with homocysteine, could be increasing IGF-1, a number of reasons. But we know beyond any shadow of a doubt the relationship of eating animals and your health. And so, like, but the resistance is great. People want to do what they want to do. Even Arnold Schwarzenegger, did a little segment. He said, if they tell you need to eat meat, you tell them that is bull. You don't need to eat meat. You can eat plants. And so he had quadruple bypass surgery. All that meat that he ate for all
Yeah.
those years. He doesn't like that. But now I don't think he's fully vegan, but he's mostly vegan. He's eating like those centenarians do
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
the blue zones, which is great. But so one of the issues that I've been waiting for to talk about, and this is a very important one, because if you haven't seen Cowspiracy, Cowspiracy, I believe, is one of the great documentaries ever, and it talks about the environment, and it talks about free ranging animals versus CAFOs, concentrated animal feedlots. And, really the conclusion is that CAFOs are much more efficient to raise cattle
Yeah.
because they only live like 12 months, 11 months, and then you slaughter them. Whereas free ranging cattle, they need
Yeah.
land,
It's true.
2 to 30 acres. I'm not a
Yeah, a lot.
cattle person, but that's what I've studied. And so they have more land that they need to use up. It requires, it's guesstimated 2,500 gallons of water for 1 pound of beef. That's just out. If you live in California, that's just outrageous. It's like, we can't do that. The aquifer, the Ogallala aquifer in central United States, made up of 8 or 9 states, is becoming dry. It's going to be dry in our lifetime. How long we're going to live more. But, that's like crazy. That's where the breadbasket is of our water. So from an environmental standpoint, it just, makes like complete sense. And there's been a number of studies to show that it might make up 51% all of animal agriculture of our global greenhouse gases.
That much.
That much.
So
Silas
it should be emphasized vigorously by all the official people, all the government agencies, and so on. How come they're not? How come they're not pointing this out?
in the
Are you wrong, and they know better?
Cowspiracy. There's a great interview. I showed this in one of my lectures. It was a little clip, and they were interviewing the Water Bureau people in California, and Kip was like talking to them, and he was wanting to get like, 2,500 gallons of water for 1 pound of beef, blah blah blah. It would be really powerful to like suggest, maybe you public out there during our shortage of water, our drought, maybe cut back on your meat consumption a little bit, and the water official was just like shaking his head, and it's like, and Kip kept asking him, well, why not? Well, why couldn't they do it? Well, it's just not going to happen. It's just, and you could tell this guy ate meat, I don't know. And it was just like,
there's a big psychology, there's science, there's environment, there's nutrition, there's ethics, there's psychology is a big part of it.
Yeah.
It's a big part of it.
It's huge. And so there's a great book, another great book. Her name is Melissa Joy.
Melanie Joy.
Melanie Joy. Sorry, Melissa. Melanie. She wrote a book called Why We Love Dogs, Eat Pigs, and Wear Cows.
Yeah.
And she does
She's a psychologist.
She's a psychologist from Harvard. And she does a great TED Talk if you ever get a chance.
Yeah, I've heard it.
And I put it on one of my lectures that I did at the AANP in Oakland. And it was you're at a dinner party. We talked about this, and there's this beautiful hamburger, and it's like, I'm not really grossed out by hamburgers except knowing like what they did to get it. And there's like cheese dripping on it, and there's like lettuce, and there's a really nice looking bun, and you're at a dinner party, and the guest is like, wow, that was so amazingly great. What's the secret? And the host is like, well, the secret is well seasoned golden retriever. And I flashed up on the screen a little picture of a puppy golden retriever just to emphasize that. And her deal was the psychology of this is like, well, you weren't grossed out before when it was like a cow or a pig, but as soon as you learned that it was a dog, which arguably pigs could be smarter than dogs,
could be stuff.
Yeah. And so it's like, well, that's kind of crazy. That's all in your mind, all that stuff. And now, if you haven't seen my octopus teacher, which I highly recommend. After you watch that movie, you can never eat octopus again. not that I ever like ate octopus before, but but when people see that, all of a sudden they're like, oh, or all these little family stories, Wallace and Gromit, the chicken. What was
Oh yeah, yeah.
the chicken? I recommend that one, where the chickens revolt. They're on a chicken pot pie farm, and they revolt and they try to escape. Chicken Run. It's really good. Or with the spider and the pig, Charlotte's Web. And that's how humans were born, and that's how when we evolved, we cared about other species and other animals. And along the way, our minds have been soiled, and we don't see things. And it's like, there's a great movie that my uncle's in. I have a famous uncle, Eli Wallach, and he was in The Misfits. I don't know if you ever saw it. Marilyn Monroe, Clark Gable, Montgomery. It's a famous movie. Yeah, it's in the 60s. And the movie is very interesting because they're out in the wild, wild west. And Clark Gable's like, yes, I love the fresh air. And my uncle's like helping him out because he flies the planes. And, basically they go and they round up horses. And they round up these wild horses and they get paid by the government for rounding them up. And then when Marilyn Monroe finds out what they actually are doing with the horses, which is they're making dog food out of the horses, she gets really upset. And it's like, well, yeah, what do you think they're doing with the horses? That's what they do. They make.
But that's a girl thing, right? To care about the animals. I mean, a lot of women say, I'm vegetarian, but my husband, he needs his meat.
Yeah.
Now, what is this? Where does that come from? Is that physiological?
No.
Is that
of course not.
Cultural? Do men need meat, women don't?
Yeah. It's just this psychological.
Men need their meat.
Yeah, they need their meat. They need a smack on
more muscles. Men have more muscles.
Yeah, but we know that this is not true. We know that we can make lots of muscle. Gorilla. Look at a gorilla. You look at a gorilla.
They're pretty strong.
Oh my God! Or orangutans and stuff. They're pretty well vegan. And it's like, well, how did they get those? Well, they work out at the gym, of course, LA Fitness or whatever they do.
They do a lot of brachiation.
Yeah. So here is the big ethical, and this is, I would say this is going to be, very controversial and stuff. And it's good. It's good. So from the environmental standpoint, we know beyond any shadow of a doubt, like killing all of these animals. By the way, we slaughter 70 to 90 billion animals a year. So currently 70 to 90, 110 million sharks, about half of them for shark fin soup. So sharks have survived 4 mass extinctions. And that goes back way before the dinosaurs. That was 66 million years ago. So they've survived all of those mass extinctions. But right now, they're in jeopardy of becoming extinct on our watch.
We're the worst environmental disaster in the history
of the world.
The
line from, Arnold Schwarzenegger, which is just, and The Matrix too. There's 2 great quotes in there. One of them is when the agent is beating the crap out of Morpheus. He's got him chained to the chair, and he's like, you humans, I've been trying to classify you. You see, you humans don't behave like normal mammals. You see, all mammals on Earth coexist with their environment. You humans do not. You humans, you move to an area and you use up all of the resources, and then you move to a different area. There's only one other animal that behaves the same way. That is a virus, a cancer. You humans are a cancer to the planet, and we are the cure. Anyway, I thought it was a brilliant little monologue there. And it's like, when you think about it, it's really true. So here's the big question. So we know, and I might not have my percentage exactly correct, that 20 to 30% of all farm animal agriculture is used to feed pets. So that means dogs
20% of
all
animal agriculture product.
Yeah.
You don't mean 20% of the animals are exclusively, because there's the argument that the animal foods, the pet foods, are made up from dead, diseased, damaged, rot, cancers, tumors, stuff that is rejected. Skin, hooves, intestines, stuff that is rejected from the meat department of the store and stuff. Not that you're raising a cow and say this cow is going to be dog food. It's like this dog, this bull or the steer is going to be steaks, and the leftover stuff that nobody wants, that's going to go in the.
And that used to be Afro-Americans' food, like down in the South. That was soul food. We give them the ham hocks, we give them the tongue, the heart. We're not going to eat that, but we'll let you slaves eat that. So a great movie is The Invisible Vegan. Another shout out. If you haven't seen The Invisible Vegan, politically is extremely important to watch that movie. So usually The Invisible Vegan and stuff. So it really points out to like the reason why Afro-Americans have such high levels of disease, hypertension, diabetes, is because they're eating this awful diet. And it's because of the whiteys basically forcing this food on them. Because the original diet of Afro-Americans in Africa was pretty much mostly vegan. It was like plants, they ate a lot of plants. And so this so-called soul food, and there's a famous naturopath, Fulton. Her name is Alvinia Fulton.
Oh, Alvinia Fulton.
She was a naturopath.
To the stars, yes.
Yes, to the stars. She treated Bill Walton, Roberta Flack, Dick Gregory, and she used to fast people and then put them on a plant-based diet and stuff. And they all felt better on that. So, I don't know what exactly the percentage is.
Right. Yeah, but it's a lot, you're saying.
But it's a lot. And so, dogs, we know dogs can eat vegan, no problem. Right. So what about cats?
Cats.
What about
tricky
cats?
What about how do you get cats to do what you want?
I mean, so I have this, debate with several colleagues, and that's the cruelest, inhumane thing you could possibly do is give a cat, a vegan diet because that's not their normal diet. And I'm like, that's true, but they are pets, and we do look after them, and we are giving them food, and they can't live on their own. I don't think they might be able to eat enough mice and
cats can revert to wild.
Yeah, they can.
That's one of the species that can. Like a cow can't, but
you're right.
Cats can revert to wild. They call them feral cats.
Yeah,
it's actually a big problem in society. There's too many wild cats around.
Well, I know in some countries you see them, they're just all over the place, like in Peru, in Cusco, the city of Cusco, there's just like gangs of cats all around. Yeah. It's like, they're unbridled population. So the question is, all right, so if we get humans to go vegan, so Dr. Silas Rao believes that, we need to, become vegan by 2026. It's a tall order. Yeah. And, I don't know how much better we're getting. We have people advocating the carnivore diet, which is, I just beyond my imagination. Okay. Plants are toxic. They have poisons. We shouldn't eat them. They got toxins, but almost every mammal on earth eats plants. You can't, and some of those toxins or toxicants are actually anti-cancer. So it's like good. So it's not clear-cut black and white. Mm-hmm. So, cats. But in terms of our pets and the amount of food that we feed them, so this is a significant amount of animal products because, I gave my dog that I had, golden retriever, for 14 years. I did give her flax oil and I give her other things, and she did eat plants, but she did eat quite a bit of meat.
Yeah, they love it.
They love it. So you're going to deprive them of, you're going to deprive your son of eating Twinkies? He loves Twinkies. You can't take Twinkies away from them, but maybe you can, and maybe they will be healthier. I mean, I don't know the answer.
Yeah. Well, that's tough love. If out of concern and well-meaning, you impose certain pressure on others for their own good, you have to be very careful, of course, that doesn't turn into tyranny.
Yeah, right.
But I mean, every parent has to do that.
Yeah.
Every parent
You
has
have
to
to
make the
decide.
kid go to bed, brush your teeth, stop using those words, whatever. So
Learn how to swim.
same with our
so you
dogs.
don't
We have to
turn-
train them. If you
Yeah.
don't train your dog, you better not take it out anywhere in society. You will
Right.
be considered an irresponsible dog keeper because your dog is misbehaving, and he could have been trained. He could have been trained to follow your domination or your
Yeah.
leadership.
Yeah.
So of course we have to make choices for
Yeah.
our domesticated animals, and we do it all the time. And so to make choices for their food, I don't see that ethically that's a lot different from making choices of what they can bark at or what they can bite or what they can chase or where they can relieve themselves.
Yeah.
We have to train them not to
Okay.
poop in the house, all that kind
Yeah,
of stuff.
all that kind of.
So to not let them eat something that is instinctual to them, that's not necessarily abusive if you can provide what they need, and even if they can enjoy it. So I
the
think I
cats
agree with
enjoy
you.
eating
I agree with
plants.
you. Dogs can thrive on a vegan diet
Yeah.
if it's properly formulated.
Right.
Same with children. It has to
Yeah.
be properly formulated. Same
Right.
with us.
Yeah.
It has to be properly
Yeah,
formulated.
you can't.
But cats, it's harder to succeed with cats on a vegan diet because the big thing that's brought up is taurine and amino acid taurine, which is relative
Carnitine.
in carnitine. Yeah, there's
choline.
another one that is in relatively small amounts in plants compared to the amount that cats tend to need.
Yeah.
And so you have to then have an artificial diet. If you're going to feed cats a plant-based diet, it has to be a formulated diet. But what's the big deal about that? Everybody feeds their animals formulated
Exactly.
diets.
I talked to Kit, about this very subject, and she's like, "We'll just add a little taurine and carnitine to their mix, and that's what they do. Like you said, all the formulas that they use have all kinds of stuff in them and artificial colors and different things.
Yeah.
in
So
there.
that in itself is not
Not a good argument.
Is not shocking. It's not a
Yeah.
good argument that it's a formulated diet that
Yeah.
my cat is not living a hunter's life.
Yeah.
And out killing birds and reptiles
Right.
and and living on
Yeah.
that as a raw foods carnivore. Right?
Yeah, we put bells on cats so
Right.
the birds can hear
So
'em.
that's really not much of an argument. But if we're depriving a cat of their nutritional needs, then they're going to suffer.
Yeah.
They're going to suffer disease and undermine their quality of life, undermine their duration of life because of the way we have fed them, and so that would be inhumane.
Right.
Turns out, though, that people have formulated diets that are suitable for cats. But Ingrid Newkirk, she's the founder and still president, decades-long president of the People for Ethical
Yeah.
Treatment of Animals, a very aggressive activist group
Yeah.
in animal rights and
Okay.
veganism. And she recognizes that, from all her scientific consultants and so on, that there are diets that are formulated for cats
Yeah.
that have complete nutrition that are plant-based,
Yeah.
but that not all cats will thrive on that.
Okay.
And in some cases, cats will have to be fed some animal products. So
Okay.
even vegan Newkirk, who's many people consider really a nut
Yeah.
for veganism and
Yeah.
animal rights, says sometimes you're going to have to feed a cat some
Yeah.
animal food if it's that kind of cat that just can't handle it.
Okay.
In our case, we've got a lot of cats on our property because we take
Yeah.
in. We're associated with the Feral Cat Coalition of Oregon.
Yeah.
And so you take in feral cats and you get them spayed and neutered
Yeah.
so they don't reproduce themselves.
Right.
And then you can release them back into wherever they were.
Yeah.
Or you can change their location and release them in a barn or
Yeah.
something to be a barn cat. And so we've done that quite often
Yeah.
because, frankly, with livestock, you have to have grains. And animals are sloppy eaters. They
Yeah.
drip and spew stuff around.
Like
and
humans.
rats love it.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
rats
yeah.
can thrive
Yeah.
around an animal operation.
Yeah.
And so we've had problems with rats. And so it's
Yeah.
good to have some good cats around whose their natural inborn instinct is to kill rats.
Do they eat them?
Yeah.
Oh, they eat them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Some of them just. Well, if you have a well-fed cat.
Yeah.
But if you want to have that balance where the cat actually eats what it kills, then you just feed them a little less. You have to watch them, make sure they're getting enough nutrition.
Right.
But
do a physical on them once a year.
Yeah. But oddly, people say, "Oh, yeah, that's terrible because they're killing birds." But frankly, at our place over 20-some years with cats, we hardly ever see. We see evidence of rabbit fights. You see the fur flies.
Yeah.
You can see the fur. We hardly ever see. We can see a hawk catch a bird.
Yeah.
And you can see where it happened and the feathers, but we hardly ever see that. Okay. We hardly ever see evidence of a cat bird kill. So I think it's very rare in our place.
Your cats are too fat, perhaps.
Maybe. I don't know.
Can't jump.
So we got cat Evolution brand.
Yeah.
A vegan cat formula.
Yeah.
And our cats did really well on it. They were picky about it. We had to put brewer's nutritional yeast on it and some flavoring.
Yeah.
And then they just loved it.
Yeah. Loved it. You're using the word love.
Oh, they enjoyed it. They ate it up.
They were just
cats, if they don't like it, they won't eat it.
Pigs and poop on a vegan farm is what I like to say.
Pigs do not roll in poop. That's only in captivity, in confinement. Pigs, unlike goats and sheep and a lot of other animals, birds, they will not poop in their living quarters. They leave the house and they poop outside and pee outside and in the snow, and then they come back in.
I'm giving them a bad.
Pigs, but they love mud. They love to roll. So anyway, that's an aside. But cats, we were very happy with. The problem though is that we would have to buy the stuff by the pallet load. We have to buy 40 bags at a time of 25-pound bags.
Wow.
And or is it? Yeah, or is it 25, 40?
pounds.
No, I think it's 40, 25-pound bags. And the supply has been really difficult because it's a small company in Chicago that manufactures it. Right. And so presently we're on another just mixed cat food. Right?
Yeah. Okay.
We're looking to solve that. So we've had to go on and off the vegan cat food, mainly due to supply problems.
Gotcha.
And so, but it doesn't seem an impossibility to us. And it bothers us. Yeah, right now we're feeding, and so we have some sick cats that really cannot eat much plant-based cat food. So we have to give them canned cat food.
Okay.
So we just, you
do the best you can.
Right. That's what everybody does.
Yeah.
And that's what we say. Carnivores do that more widely than we do.
Yeah.
They say, I'm not going to think about it.
Right.
I enjoy meat. I'm going to eat. I'm not going to think about it. All right. So we can still do that when we have to. All right, the cats have to eat meat. Oh, I hate it, but I'm not going to think about it because I got to feed the cat.
Yeah.
And so, okay, we're not perfect.
All right.
We're not idealistically perfect, but we're doing the best we can.
So I'm going to start up, and I want you to be my first member. I have the names of about 50 people, and I just haven't gotten it together because, stuff time, blah, blah, blah. The NVA, Naturopathic Vegan Association. I know some of my...
I'll join if the dues aren't too high.
Yeah, they're pretty reasonable. The sliding scale. You might get
I'm retired.
Yeah, you're retired. You got your Medicare card. I want to see your Medicare card. So, and there's a big controversy of the word vegan. And, and some of my Whole Foods plant-based friends, they're adamant. Don't use that word vegan. Oh, that scares people and stuff. And my shtick is to make vegan a good word, so it's not a curse word. Because some people hear it and they're like, "Oh God, vegans! They're just so yucky and disgusting and sickly, and they just are not. I'm not going to be a vegan." It's not exactly correct. And as you know, Donald,
just because you're a vegan, it doesn't give you a right to be an obnoxious asshole. Right?
Exactly.
That could be a motto.
Yeah. So in the NVA, there's a big controversy, and people should watch it if they're interested. His name is Jeff Nelson. He says, "You're not a vegan" is the name of the video. You can look it up online, and it goes through the history of veganism. And Donald Watson was the original person that coined the term vegan, short for vegetarian. Mm-hmm. And the original idea was nutritional status. It was a health thing. I believe that was in 1946, 1947. And then there was another guy that came in and was militant about that vegans, the main reason is ethics. And he took over, and all these members that they had decided that it was a little too strict and a little too like neo-Nazi, and they quit. And it's like, and then ironically, this person that took over the group, the Vegan Association, was making soy milk. This was in the early 50s. And the soy milk, they had a problem at their plant with rats. So they ended up having to exterminate all these rats or close up the business. Hardly a vegan act. Yeah. So the point that I would like to make here is that I think that we need to be a little bit lenient, in terms of the definition. But, I think we need to be educated. Like to use the isinglass fish bladder to filter the wine to make it clarified is like stupid. It's like, well, maybe it works well, and we've done that always. Just like Schlesinger tennis balls that we use at Wimbledon. We talked about this. Travels an average distance of 60,000 kilometers. And we get the wool from these sheep in New Zealand. It gets shipped to Japan, and they got the rubber, and they put that, and by the time it gets back to Wimbledon and in England, there's your tennis ball. It's like, why do we need to put sheep wool on a tennis ball? Why do we have to have a pig skin for anything? I'm sure they got materials that we can create that work much, much better and are much better, and you're not like using animal parts.
Somebody will debate you on that.
About that, the materials.
Oh, sure.
You can't beat wool for, a tennis ball.
Somebody will debate you.
I'm sure, but, get over it. Like as a species, I think that we need to evolve. Like right now, we're on the edge of extinction. Right now, 200 species, animals, insects, plants become extinct every day. This is the fastest rate since the dinosaurs 66 million years ago. That's a lot. And it's under our watch. We're responsible.
Now, you're more informed than I am about current events. Do you think there's a mass attitude in society that we're like on a plane that's going down, and what you and I are talking about, aeronautic engineering, but we're about to hit the water and all die. Yeah. And so our talk is meaningless. What is society? I'm not asking you to predict the future, whether we can change.
Predict the future.
But what is the general societal attitude about making an effort to turn things around?
Well, there's a great movie, and it was called The Corporation. If you haven't seen that one, it's another one. I'm going to post my reading list
and movie list,
movie list, which I have extensive list. And in the movie, they are interviewing various owners of different companies. One of them his name was Anderson, and he was president, CEO of the largest commercial flooring place in the world. I think it was called Interface Flooring. And, in this documentary, he was given a paper by some environmentalists, and the paper was like, can you give a little talk at a little conference and tell us what you're doing for the environment? And he kind of read it, and he was like, oh, he never really even thought about it. And so it was like, wow, I guess, and so it was kind of painful for him to actually realize he wasn't doing anything for the environment. So he became informed, and he actually started changing the practice of how they made carpeting. And they made it so that you could delaminate it, and you could recycle one of the layers of the rubber, and you could recycle the top part. And it was like, and, he gave an analogy that we think us humans, we're flying, and we're flying, we're like eagles. And, and he shows a little video of when, they did those contraptions, and they put the wings on them, and they jumped off the cliff, and they're like flying, but they're going straight down to the ground, and they're still flying.
Yeah.
But eventually they're going to hit the bottom, and they're going to realize that they never really were flying. They were just crashing
Falling.
the whole time. And
Uh-huh.
and I think, that is true, that we are headed down. And so what I tell people is that what I would prefer us to do is maybe when we start getting close to the bottom, which we're getting there, is maybe kind of level off a little bit so that not too many billions of people die. Because unfortunately, I believe there's going to be a lot of chaos because water shortage is imminent. There's just not enough space for people. And I think, the way we use resources, I mean, we are burning up, fossil fuels at this crazy rate. I showed you the picture of the map. I was at MoMA, Museum of
Oh, right.
Modern Art.
About old growth forests.
Of old growth forest. And when you look at the map, 1620 in the United States, 50% of all the US was covered in old growth trees. Now we're down to like 0.1%. There's a few trees over here in Oregon where we live out in the forests. And it's like, oh, really? We cut down all those trees? And it's like, well, yeah. And they're never going to be able to be replaced because they're thousands of years old. So it's like we need to sort of like as a whole, like the 100th monkey, we need enough of us to get the picture that we need to change things.
So you're optimistic in that way.
I
There
am.
could be a so-called tipping point.
Yeah.
Where this very slow progress we're making can suddenly surge.
And that's Dr. Silas Rao's same thing. And so he gives the Kadai movement, which is the movement to not buy British clothes, so as a means of getting independence. So he started it in 1917, 1918, and it went to 1931. And if you watch Gandhi, the movie, there's a section with the burning the clothes. And everyone, in 1905, he was wearing a three-piece suit made in England. And, everyone was like, well, what's that going to do? That's stupid. We're not going to do that. We're not going to go vegan. That's harmful. You're going to be unhealthy, and it's not going to do anything.
Nobody else is going to. Not enough people will do it.
Not enough do it. So the word spread. By 1931, the Manchester textile industry, which was the largest industry in Great Britain, went bankrupt. It's like, whoa. And they came groveling back to India. Could you please buy our clothes? We need you to buy the clothes. There's a lot of people in India and stuff. 17 years later, they get their independence. And it all started from a single act of just don't buy British clothes. And if everyone does it, if everyone goes vegan, if everyone thinks maybe we don't need to use sheep wool for tennis balls, we got some other materials, maybe there's enough of us that can turn things around, and it could be overnight. It could be like
many people make a big decision quickly.
Yes.
They ponder it, and then
bam,
decide.
Yeah.
So it could happen.
So that's what I'm hoping for. That's why you're on the show, because we're going to make this thing happen. And we're going to, gently prod people. Some people need to. I have a little sticker here, and it says, I do yoga, I meditate, I drink green tea, but I still want to smack someone in there. It's like, so we can't be perfect, but, we could all strive. Maybe we can't protect all the ants. If you've seen 7 Years Out of Tibet, there's one scene where, Brad Pitt is hired by the Dalai Lama to make a theater.
Oh, right.
And they're all digging up the soil and blah, 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 and all the workers, and the Dalai Lama calls Brad Pitt in and said, so that, Buddhism, every life is sacred. And that means the worms. And you're killing all of these worms. So the next scene, they show them sifting the dirt, and they got the worms, and they're putting them in a little tray, and they're watering the tray to keep them. Anyway, it was very cute. It was, So, I mean, we got to be able to do that with, some of the bigger animals like sharks. Like to let sharks become extinct because we want to eat shark fin soup. Sorry, that's just like that's not really using our schnoggins and stuff. So, last week we talked about nukes in my podcast. When we look at, broken arrows, I mean, we look at, how many bombs we've dropped, over 530 bombs in the atmosphere. I mean, all that goes in the atmosphere and stuff. So, we signed the treaty in 63, like, okay, we're not going to do that anymore. Just like we also signed the largest environmental treaty ever signed was the Montreal Protocol. It was 1987, I believe. And it was about not using, fluorocarbons for the atmosphere that damaged the ozone hole. And the two scientists, Shary and Molina, won a Nobel Prize for their discovery. And when they first, in 1972, came out with their paper, they were considered to be quacks, and they were like ridiculed, and they were ostracized from their profession. And then they win a Nobel Prize. And then even Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan signed this treaty, and they were responsible for making it happen, because Margaret Thatcher was actually a biologist, chemist. She had a PhD. She was actually pretty smart. She realized, oh my God, we need not to do this anymore. So I think that, our job, so, our great mentor Bill Mitchell made the statement once that he said, naturopathic physicians are God's immune system designed to go out and save our planet from the people that are unfortunately not doing well. So anyway, I always talk about that, and I was like, oh, I like that. That's why I joined this profession over here, because I want to make good.
I kind of like that, because the immune system has many different components.
Absolutely.
Many different procedures and mechanisms.
And so we need...
There's a room for a lot of different types of activity or activism or influence.
We need Johnny over here. Johnny over here is our film producer over here. We need people to send out the message on the internet, because I'm a little tech-tarded. I don't know all this stuff. And, we need people to market the stuff, and we need people, we need, to paint the outside of the place over here. So we need all of those parts, and they need to be moving in a similar direction. And that direction needs to, we need to kind of agree on some things here.
Yeah. And I appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah.
On the way over, I heard an interview with an actress.
Yeah.
And she was talking about why theater is still thriving, even in the era of film and movies and all that. She said, we have a need for, she said, John Janae said this, for eyes to see my eyes. You need to connect.
Yeah.
And so people to people.
Yeah. I mean,
planet ain't going to save itself from us. We have to do it, and it's going to have to be people to people interaction, cooperation, coordination, and not just offending people by judging them as being inferior to our high ideals or something.
Yeah.
Right?
When I see the Liver King, biting into a piece of raw liver, I just think like, okay, that's very funny. And then he's eating
hopefully not everybody will do that.
He's like eating the testicles of some other animals. Okay, that's, it's like, there's a better way to do that. And you know what? You might be a little healthier if you just sort of limit that like consumption over there. Yeah, I mean, it's, it is a funny thing. It's difficult for people to grasp the big picture. And, I'm just going to keep banging my horn over here, and I'm going to have more people like John on my podcast, and we're going to talk about important things, And if you haven't seen, the movie Don't Look Up, great movie again, I think, and there's one scene where Jennifer Lawrence is like, they're talking about the size of his genitalia, one of the, the guys in the Senate that's running for office. And it's like, and her boyfriend is like more interested in that than the fact that this comet is headed to Earth and it's going to end all life on Earth. And it's like, and she's like beside herself. It's like, oh my God, are you crazy? And she loses it. She did a great job in that movie. Anyway, I recommend that movie. And if you haven't seen Oppenheimer, go see it on the big screen, IMAX. So, John, I mean,
We're all out of water.
We
have
could
to stop.
yeah, we could be here for at least 2 or 3 more hours, easily. And we're gonna have you back.
To talk about.
We're gonna have you back on the show for sure. Because
if I do, you have to give a more realistic introduction. Your introduction, I must say, was evidence of a passion for exaggeration.
Exactly. See, God is always humble. He's always like, he's not judgmental. He's, So I urge people also go visit. Is that okay if I invite them to out?
No, we don't have visitors.
No visitors? You want to work? Okay.
We're only open once a year for visitors. It's on Halloween, and you have to get a ticket. It's a limited.
Okay. The tickets aren't cheap.
A lot of our animals are not interested in
Okay.
people. They don't like people. People were mean to them.
Okay.
And like I said, it's a small, totally volunteer-run organization. There's a lot of work all the time. It's hard to keep up. And whenever you have visitors, like you have visitors in your house, you have to spend some hours cleaning up, getting ready, making everything look nice,
is good
so
for
they
me.
won't know how you really live. Well, that's in its basic human psychology. And so it's a big distraction from our work if we have to have visitors.
Okay,
so we
scratch that idea. There are no visitors allowed, but I want you to
visit us online, Instagram and Facebook. Out to Pasture Animal Sanctuary. You can see what we're doing, and you can give us money.
Give them money if you want to adopt a pet. I adopted an orangutan that was basically going to be, slaughtered and stuff. This was, a talk that was done years ago, and it was about Borneo, and all the orangutans were becoming extinct because they were cutting down all the trees for palm trees. And it was awful. And anyway, I became the father, or adopted as a pet. His name was Jojo. And I heard that Jojo is now officially in the wild. So they let him go, and he's free, and he's having a good time over. And he gave birth to a son or a daughter. I can't remember which one. Good. Anyway,
congratulations, Russell.
Thank you. Anyway, so out to Pasture
Animal Sanctuary
in
Oregon. There's one in Connecticut for dogs only, not related to us.
All right, so
out to Pasture Animal Sanctuary in Estacade, Oregon. Look us up, Instagram, Facebook.
Yeah, and you can look me up. However, we'll figure out how that works eventually. We'll get the word out. So thanks for listening, and stay tuned for.
Thank you to our cameraman for sitting here through this whole thing.
I can't believe
I'm gonna
have to adjust his back for sure and do some acupuncture. I'm sore just looking at him.
Yeah, you should give him a better chair next time.
Well, we're gonna expand. For sure. We got big plans.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
This is great.
I enjoyed the talk.
This is fun. Yeah. I mean, we do this anyway, but we might as well record the damn thing and let other people see what inspiring minds are doing out there. And go read also Fiona Oakes's book, and it's about her sanctuary and how she created it and how amazing athlete she is, and she's vegan since age 6. And so she seems to be doing quite well on her dietary plan. So, and as I mentioned, so I've been since about 7 years been vegan, and I've done as a vegan probably only about 50 triathlons, but as a vegetarian over 400 triathlons to date. So you don't really need to eat animals. All right,
but it's difficult. The Dalai Lama gives a hint. He says, get in touch with your compassion, with your experience of compassion, your mother, your child, your pet. Get in touch with how you experience compassion and how you have been the beneficiary of someone's compassion. Get in touch with that. And then widen your scope slowly to bring others into your field of compassion. A little more, a little more, a little more.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's great. All right. Thank you, and see you later, alligator.
In a while, crocodile.
Yeah, in a while.